Welcome to Inside Sport Management. We are diving into one of the most powerful forces shaping success in sport: leadership. Before we start, let's take a moment to learn more about our guest, Peter Van Passen, whose journey from professional athlete to academic and consultant offers a unique perspective on what leadership truly means in sport.
Peter Van Passen is a sports consultant, researcher, and NBA color commentator for ESPN. He serves as a lecturer and researcher at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, where he contributes to programs in sports leadership and high-performance development. Peter has worked with the Dutch Basketball Federation's Orange Lions Academy as a talent coach, helping guide the next generation of athletes. A former professional basketball player, he combines athletic experience with academic expertise in sports education and leadership.
Thank you, Peter, for joining the show. So let's start with the first question. In your view, what defines effective leadership in sports today?
I love discussing leadership in sports and especially high-performance sports because I think it's very dynamic, it's evolving, and I think we're in a pretty good place because leadership, to me, it has very little to do with authority or rank or hierarchy. It's not about your title or who gives the orders. I think real leadership, it's a personal decision to help the people around you become the best version of themselves. And you have to create the environment in which those people can become the best version of themselves. I've seen this in business, in education, in other industries, in government, but it's no more visible than it is in high-performance sports. The best teams that I've worked with, that I've studied, the most consistent performers, they've all had leaders who've made it not about themselves. You can call this servant leadership or humility, but what really sets these leaders apart is that they have gotten over their own egos. Now, in order to get there, you first have to know yourself. You have to understand what drives you. You have to understand what maybe holds you back, and you have to understand what your Achilles heels could be, because it's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. It's about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and then surround yourself with the people that can complement all of that. In high-performance sports, it's also about, I think, being contextually aware. Sport is moving so fast, and high-performance sport, by definition, it's very international, very dynamic. You're constantly working with different groups of stakeholders, and you have to meet them where they are. They all have their own perspectives and their pressures, and great leaders, I think, they sense that complexity and they know how to navigate it with empathy and with clarity. And then finally, I think as a great leader in sports, you have to have that vision of where you want to go and then be able to communicate that clearly to the people involved. So it's about shaping that vision and then breaking it down and then communicate clearly to everyone in your organization. What does it mean for them and how can they contribute in achieving that vision?
That's a great perspective, especially the idea that leadership is about creating environments for others to succeed. Let's build on that. So our next question is, how can coaches and sport managers create environments that truly support athlete development and growth?
The main task, I believe, of any coach or sports manager is to create an optimal learning and development environment for athletes. One that's both safe, but also challenging and even empowering. Because talent, it doesn't develop in isolation. It's shaped by the environment and how an athlete interacts with that environment. So the role is not just to train the athlete, but also to enable them, to give them the tools, the confidence, and the ownership to steer their own growth. That begins with a foundation of safety and trust. Athletes, especially the younger generation, they have a need to be seen for who they are as a person, not only what they are as an athlete. When that sense of safety is in place, then they gain the confidence to kind of take initiatives, but also step outside their comfort zone. And that's necessary because The environment must be a challenging one. It must be one where boundaries are being pushed and abilities stretched, because in the end, you do want to prepare these athletes for the reality of highly competitive sports. So growth happens where support and challenge meet each other. Another thing that I think sport managers and coaches can implement is feedback and the right way of communicating, because you want to nurture that belief and you want to empower the athletes. Athletes, they're not passive followers. They want to be active co-creators of their own journey. And you have to have the role models that are in place and make this potential growth visible and tangible. Those role models have to show what's actually achievable if you do the right things. And that message needs to be communicated not only by the sport managers and by the coaches, but also by those role models. So in the end, optimal talent development environment is one where the athletes, they feel both cared for, but also challenged at themselves, where they're safe enough to take risks and then also empowered enough to take ownership to actually jump into all of those risks.
Now, one final question to close our discussion today. From your career journey as an athlete, coach, and of course now a consultant, what leadership lesson has stayed with you the most and why?
I've been fortunate enough to have been coached by some tremendous coaches and have engaged with some very effective leaders in the world of sports. And one of the best lessons I ever received was actually from a coach many years ago. And it was a saying, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And the reason is that we can listen twice as much as we can speak. And throughout the year, I kind of added my own little twist to that, is that when you do decide to speak, it's often a good idea to start with a question. Because to me, that captures one of the most powerful leadership principles that there is, and that's curiosity. The willingness to listen deeply, to stay open-minded, and to admit that as a leader, you don't have all the answers, and you don't have to. In sport, I think that curiosity is essential because the game is always changing. There's new ideas and new technologies and even new generations of athletes with their own thought processes. The best leaders are humble enough to keep learning and to seek out new insights and then to translate them into practice for the benefit of the whole organization.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing your thoughtful reflections with us. Your journey reminds us that leadership in sport isn't about control. It's about empowering others and creating the conditions for growth. To our viewers, thank you for joining us on Inside Sport Management. Stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to explore the evolving world of sport leadership and management. Thank you very much.